So, meine Damen und Herren, weiter geht's. Wir dürfen jetzt gleich Professor Dr. Peter A. Bruck bei uns.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, let's continue now. We will welcome Mr. Peter Bruck. He is a professor and he's the founder and CEO and board member, General Secretary of DIO, Data Intelligence Offensive. And in innovation consulting, he's also responsible for the foundation in Europe and North America. In his presentation, Tourism Data Space, he's talking about scaling the tourism of tomorrow and the new potentials for tourism in this regard. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dr. Peter Bruck. Thanks a lot for the introduction and your nice introductory words. That sounds always nice when you hear all the things that you have done already and all the different positions you're holding. I'll take off my jacket. It's a bit warm inside. So there were not so many people here in the room. It was a discussion, a panel discussion on digital transformation, on digital marketing, on the surface of interaction, where people communicate with each other, where people talk with each other. And now what I would like to talk about and do a tour with you is to go to the other side and start where the infrastructure comes together with all those things. For those of you who are in a hurry and don't have time, I have a summary, and then you can take your things and get a coffee outside and leave the room. So this is the basis. Only the data make a scaling possible, a quality scaling also, not only a quantity scaling. And if we think of the new potentials for tourism of tomorrow, then it is not the way the gentleman before said that I have to do more of this and that. I have to do it in a more intelligent way. I have to do it in a more targeted way and by saving resources and in a smarter way. And in the end of the day, the invitation is from us, from Data Intelligence Offensive, is how can we do that? How can we be smarter? And being smart is not something that comes about alone. It's the way we do it and we act. We need base principles to do it and values on which we base our action. And the Data Intelligence Offensive is a value-based interaction. It is the result of research-oriented research on transformation, and it talks about what is the key element of this topic, the data transformation. And this, the Data Intelligence Offensive tries to see it not only as a technology-driven thing, but look at it based on certain values, so that the technologies are also within a regulatory framework. This distinguishes Americans from Chinese. The Americans try out a lot of things before they think of the consequences, or they have a clear idea about the consequences, and they just try it. And the Chinese see it from a different point of view. They approach it as and think that there is a social engineering and competence required to make this possible and to free themselves from the dictatorship or the communism that is ruling the country. So in our case, it is about data sovereignty. I was at the conference of the federal government. I talked to Mr. Kocher, and he said something interesting on sovereignty and data, and the data aspect. If we talk about data, then value is always the goal, and I have to think about how I implement the goal in order to make things correctly is another question. So it means that if during the pandemic I have a situation where 10 to 15% of the people can deregister from the registration of health data, then my starting situation on which I base my analysis of data is not that good anymore. So I have to look at what are the principles, what are the basic values, what do we have to refer, or what do we want to refer to, and which consequences will this bring about. So in order to deal well with this transformation, we coined and characterized some terms and concepts, the data space. And I would like to introduce this concept of data space. In this data economy, it is about exactly about what we were talking about. It is about networking. It is about bringing things together, making things happen. And I came here from the Wienerwald today, and then a picture came to my mind. I was thinking of that everyone has a source or a well and of data, and everyone has a data well, and then we have the different pipelines, and which we are connecting, because then water is running. And so this is the same thing. We have to connect our data to make them work. So if we look at it in this sense and consider it like a pipeline, then we will understand it. So what are the prerequisites to make this all work? And these are the principles. So the first thing is I need to have trust from people, that people trust you, that you will handle and process the data according to what you said or according to what you promised. And here the data intelligence offensive is very important, and the access to data transformation. And it is important here to state that not like in the US, you should not correct a development after trying it out and then correcting it. No, this is the American model. But the Europeans, we in Austria, we say no. We should start doing it well from the very beginning, and we should deal with the questions first and think first before we implement something, and do it continuously and understand processes, and make sure that something works out before I start it. And when I do design, then I have to think it as a quality element of my concept, of my thinking. And sovereignty by design means that I have the possibility to determine what I do with the data, and everyone can decide what to do with the data. And I was in the conference yesterday with two of the unicorns, and they said security is an obstacle to further develop innovative projects. And I don't think so. I don't agree. It is not an obstacle, but it is a force and a strength. if you do it well. Then another two aspects are important regarding prerequisites: the networking, possibility to connect, the connectivity, and the usability. So it is important, for example, if I buy a host, that I have 3 different dimensions of the host. And so I have a standard dimension, and everyone uses the standard sizes, and then the usability. And this is, I think, the biggest challenge in data transformation in the next years in the health sector, in many other sectors. Having a qualitative view as far as the data is concerned. So data scalability, when I use this data on the basis of the prerequisites that I mentioned now. So how do we see tourism? Tourism is seen very often in the wrong way, and the way they were also depicting it in the panel discussion before, they said it is about the promises, about the ideas and the concepts. Of course, it is about also stories and images, but not only about these promises that we make by showing these pictures. I have to ask myself, how can I implement and realize them? And my thesis here is I need data in order to have also a basis for all these promises. And what happens normally? Normally, one invests in tourism, in advertisement of the destination, in infrastructure, new cable cars or whatever are constructed, offers, investments in the infrastructure are made. And the essential thing now is, in the future, not doing more of all this, but how can I make this more efficient? This is the question for the future. The tourism should be understood as a data-based and data-driven area, and the data efficiency should be the goal. Why? Because today it is about the limits of growth. And this is not something only existing in literature, but is a reality. And we know that the ecological system and our mountains, where our environment is fragile, and we need to address the right people and not as many as possible. So not quantity, but quality. So we have to focus on one thing. And focusing on one thing means not only having data for the existing systems, but use data in order to strengthen sustainability within our society. And in the EKD Congress of the government yesterday, the chief officer of the federal government's office told me that they are scanning 50 million pages every year. I don't want to tell you that this is a lot of work. No, I want to tell you that this is a really serious error on the long run. So that they are in the Federal Computing Center scanning 50 million pages every day. So with the help of technologies, I could do it differently. So it is not only about bringing things to the normal, but to reinvent things, so restructure things and redesign things, and then go into a real re-engineering. So the data offensive invites you to think into this direction and to do the scaling of tourism in the direction of social sustainability. And this is our task. This is something we have to do, not the data scientists or the technicians can do that, but on the corporate level, this must be done by the chief executive office or chief operating office, and it is about trust by design. So basically, we have to rethink things in order to also deal with our limitations and restrictions that are existing, that are there. And this is a development that is a reality. So we have data twins also, and this is from originating from the geo technology with the help of digital maps. The visualization has been done, and the data have been processed, and digital twins have been produced. So this is a very interesting development that you can develop further in different directions. And we have to ask ourselves, what do we really want? And here, with the help of digital twins, what do we want to do? We want to remodel the entire processes in tourism. We want to address the right people and the right number of people, or adequate number of people at different times, and in in different places and determined places. So, and there you can also then, of course, offer some supplementary services where you can, for example, use the wellness or the spa area, and to use all things that are available correctly. The prerequisite is that we have these values at hand and that I have the need. So we're talking about values, and we talk about a business herd. So it needs to herd one. So the data transformation will take place only if it becomes clear to us that this will be a transformation to the better. And it serves to have a communication platform, a cooperation platform. The DIO is creating a network between people to cooperate, the stakeholders along the data value creation chain, and those who can analyze, who can collect or can analyze, or those who can then use the data. So we try to cooperate in this value creation chain, and this works quite well in Austria. We are successful and we're really unique all over Europe. We represent the different players, and these players are also integrated and cooperate with us quite well. So how is it done? We have work groups, and these different working groups deal with different topics. Mobility and tourism, for example, is one topic. Another question is, for example, how to prevent accidents in traffic, or the question of ecological use of trunks and wood in our economy and agriculture. And all these different work groups work on different interests and those who are interested in this data. And then we create data circles, and this is the next step into the creation of use cases. As I already said, our focus is really clear, it's very clear, and it concentrates on the challenges in tourism. And if we want to be successful in that, we must distinguish from others. We must concentrate on green tourism, on sustainable tourism, and we must understand that we live in a society that needs to tackle also the challenges that we have in the environmental pollution and that we have really to work on this to reduce the impact on our environment and to tackle the problems of climate change. We don't want only to deal with it, but we really want to put measures or to put into force measures against the climate change, and we want to reach out for those who are responsible. So the beginning is the creation of working groups, and then we create these data spaces, and then the data circles in the next step. What happens in this development? Something really important happens in this development. If you work for a big enterprise or a startup business, a decisive aspect is that the positions are clear. The roles have been assigned clearly. If the roles haven't been assigned clearly, then it is not successful, because in the end, the results will be not achieved as desired. So we are based on that, and we really analyze the different interests of different groups. And why do we do that? Because from technology and research, we learned that from technology transfer, we learned that these organizational questions are decisive. Most of the times, artificial intelligence software projects are only successful if you proceed like this. So I worked in this area long enough to know that if we would have invested more time in a clear assignment of roles, we would have maybe reached more of our goals and even better. And where we work together with Österreich Werbung is the creation of clusters, of hubs. We work together with partners and providers and consultants in this regard. The goal is always to create, to define a data space. For example, in the data space tourism, we have to identify roles and the herd. So the tourism herd, for example. How do we want to proceed in the future together with Österreich Werbung and different agencies on the regional level, and the travel agencies, tourism agencies, and some regional partners. We cooperate here, and I'm happy and glad that I'm here today to show you and present you this data and show you in which direction we are heading to. And tourism is data. If we use this, we have higher quality, we have more sustainability, and we can use our resources better and more carefully. Thanks a lot for your attention. Now, I would like to ask you if there are questions. I promised someone a donut if he would, or a coffee if if he would ask me a question. You said that security is not something given, that this will not be something easy to achieve. Why not? Because in the end of the day, the sustainable development, the economic sustainable development will depend on not only having security, but also to secure it and based on social and economic acceptance. So it's a question of acceptance of the society. So it depends on how fast we will be able to react, isn't it? Yes, this is a very important question, and this refers to the risk availability, and in different regions. And here we have different starting points in. And regarding the different cultures, we have different grades or degrees of risk-taking. And if we talk about data economy, we have to guarantee data security. Let's make a comparison. Let's imagine that we would now reintroduce the social media and do try to analyze the value by design. If we would have a value by design, then we would have a different, then it would be a different approach. Thanks a lot for your answer. You were talking about the Federal Computing Office before, and this example. I can agree. Tourism is should do new processes and not digitalize old processes simply. So I was talking about 3 points: values, hertz, and roles. So this was were the 3 aspects that are important for successful data space. And I think it would work, or it works, if people notice how weird it is if I digitalize old processes, old things from the past. We said it yesterday in the conference. Martin Kocher was there, Mrs. Gewessler, Mrs. Edstadler, the internal minister, Minister of the Interiors was there. And if you remember, Willy Molterer was Minister of Finances once, maybe you remember. And maybe you remember that he was the first that the Minister of the Ministry of Finances is a data space. And 15 years later, the Federal Computing Office tells us something like this, and people then now must think, yes, this is weird. So 50 million scans of processes and old documents. And this is the purpose of me coming here today to the Austrian Tourism Days, because I have the impression that Österreich Werbung and the reorientation in the innovation department understood it. Right now, we need a clear, drastic example of the witness of of this digital process if we have old processes that we now digitalize. This is an absurdity. So would keep. Is there a chance for smaller enterprises to participate in these initiatives? Can I ask you a question? Do you know Tobias Hofer is the solution to your question? And he's sitting right there, right here in front of me. Tobias is on my last slide. Even sorry, I did not show the last slide. He's your contact person. And thanks a lot for your attention. A good afternoon.